Parshas Pekudei starts off with the words Ele Pekudei HaMishkan Asher Pukad Al Pi Moshe. So the Alshich is quoted by Rav Yitzchak Zilberstein in his new Sefer Achash Sha'alti, and says that Moshe Rabbeinu saw that the Leitzonim would have a taina against him, that he helped himself to some of the money from the Mishkan. So therefore Moshe Rabbeinu gave an exact accounting. But the question is, if these people were Leitzonim, who would say that they would trust his accounting? Therefore, it says that these were calculated Shepukad Al Pi Moshe. They were calculated according to Moshe's instructions, that even if the public do not want to accept the accounting from their leader, he still gives the accounting anyway, so that he'll be vindicated in the eyes of Hashem and of Yisrael. In other words, he did it for his own gratification in terms of saying, I did the right thing. Now, he brings down a very interesting mashal to very powerfully prove this point. And here's what a story from a Yid. Some time ago, I boarded a plane back to Israel, coming back from America, and sitting in the seat next to me was a well-known Rosh Hashiva. They served us our meals. I waited for the Rosh Hashiva to make his bracha so I could say Amen. To my astonishment, he put the food in his mouth without saying a bracha, didn't even mumble the words under his breath. It was like that throughout the entire long flight. He ate and drank and did not say one single bracha rishona or achroina. At a certain point during the flight, a group of passengers organized a minyan for Mincha Ma'ariv. I started to walk in the group's direction, but not before gently waking up to Rosh Hashiva. They're starting Mincha now, next to the area of the galley. To my surprise, he did not move from his seat. He was sitting not far from us. He could hear and see us davening. He continued to sit quietly, detached from all that was going on. I was horrified the entire flight by the Rosh Hashiva's behavior. No davening, no brachos, no kaddish, no kedusha. A storm of emotions raged in my head. I decided to control myself and not speak out. The plane landed, everyone gathered their things and prepared to disembark. I was ready to disembark. Rosh Hashiva was still sitting motionless, as if glued to his seat. Is the Rosh Hashiva staying here? I asked him curiously. Everyone's already off the plane. He answered he was waiting for them to unload his mother's aron from the plane. I was shaken to the core. The man I suspected of disregarding mitzvahs, or even worse, of being an impostor, was actually an onain, bringing his deceased mother's body for kavur in Eretz Yisrael. An onain, a mourner whose deceased relative has not yet been buried, is not only potter from mitzvahs, he's not allowed to do mitzvahs. He doesn't daven, doesn't say brachas, and that is brought down in Yoredeya. I felt embarrassed. I had not tried to be dan l'kaf schus, or even to speak to him to figure out what had been going on. Now the kasha to Rav Zilberstein was, did the Rosh Hashiva act correctly? Should he have stood up and announced to the entire minyan that he was an onain who was not allowed to perform mitzvahs, so that no one would suspect him of disparaging the mitzvahs? And the answer he gives, which is quite interesting, is the onain could have gotten up and announced that he was an onain, because a person should not give any others reason to suspect him of wrongdoing. As we learn in Masechta Shkolim, a person has to pass the scrutiny of people just as he passes the scrutiny of Hashem. As the pasuk says in Bamidbar, you should be vindicated by Hashem and from Yisrael. However, we should justify his behavior by arguing that there are airlines that refuse to divulge whether or not there is an aron on board. The passengers find it disturbing. Had the Rosh Hashiva announced that he was an onain, would have started asking him questions, he would have to tell them that the aron was on the board. He did not want to reveal his status, perhaps not to hurt the airline. However, Rav Zilberstein said he could have done it a little bit better. He should have stood together with the minyan, and he could have mumbled under his breath, Hashem Nasan, Hashem Lokach, Yehi Shem Hashem Avarach, and kept saying that over and over again, so that the minyan was davening and thinking that he was part of it. He could have mumbled something so as not to give a maris ayin. In this story, it mentions that the halachas of onain are in Yoredeya. It reminded me that my father, Al Vashon, was nifter on a Friday night. I got the information that he was nifter. So I said, I'm sitting in my house. Nobody knew about it. It was late at night. And I said, I have to learn Hilchos Aninus. I don't know Hilchos Aninus. I never wanted to learn halachos of Avelus or Aninus. So I desperately started searching for where I could find Hilchos Aninus. I went through the entire Mishnah Brura, could not find Hilchos Aninus. I said, what do I do now? I had gotten an encyclopedia from a very close Torah friend of mine, Rabbi Socha Englard, an encyclopedia of Yiddishkeit, and I looked up Aninus, and he says right there in there that the halacha is in the Gemara. I looked it up in the Gemara, and the Marmokim in the Gemara says that they are discussed in Yoredeya. I never thought of that. I learned two things that night. I learned Hilchos Aninus. I also learned that Mishnah Brura is only on Orach Chaim. Or perhaps I knew that and I had forgotten. It's not on Yoredeya. The Aruch HaShulchan is on Yoredeya. That's a wonderful sefer. But the Mishnah Brura is not. I spent the entire night learning Hilchos Aninus and became a baki in Hilchos Aninus when my father, Al Vasham, was nifter. So when it said here in the story that it's in Yoredeya, that reminded me of the fact that I sat at night and learned Yoredeya, Hilchos Aninus, from the Aruch HaShulchan, of course. And I recommend the Aruch HaShulchan to everyone. It's a wonderful sefer, and you will benefit from it enormously if you ever pick it up and look at it and learn from it. In that schus, may we all be zochet to simchis and naches and gezint and Be'ezus Yisrael Bias Koel Tzedek B'Merev Yameinu. Amen. Get Shabbos.